I am here as ever with Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
Hello, good to see you.
We are back talking about sensory health, which we always enjoy. I've lost track now. We're way north of 50 of these. Way north of that. It's great.
It's good to be here. So many things to talk about. They're just infuses so many areas of life, and that there's always going to be something to address, some tiny little thing that is going to bother somebody, but actually a little tweak here, a little change there. If it's not a full assessment of everybody's sensory needs, then it's just something that's going to make life a little bit better for people. That's the plan, and that's the hope, isn't it?
Yep. And we have covered. I mean, I was flicking through the other day. I was looking at all the because we've now got more than 100 subscribers to our YouTube channel, which is very exciting. But I was looking through all the videos and the types of playlists we've got, and we've got all my Andy B meets as Richard Scott, and then there's ours as well, which is a separate playlist. If you want to go and watch back to back 60 or something videos of Anne Laure Jackson and myself, you can do and learn lots. But I was flicking through some of the topics we've covered, and it's really encouraging.
Oh, I don't need to go back and have a look and just see. What was that again?
I mean, there's so much in there. Everything from the beginning, which is one of my favorite ones, I think, just because it broke, I suppose, the stereotype of what a sensory health issue is, or it's just young children who can't do stuff. But one of our very first things, a question that came in, was from a guy in their 50s who'd had brain surgery and struggled with memory retention. Not being forgetful, that's different. But you came up with some really great advice for him. But I love the fact that one of our very first things to cover was not the stereotypical child screaming on the floor in a supermarket because they're having a sensory health overload.
Yeah, yeah, it's lovely. Let's flag up, let's air, let's expose, let's bring to the fore lots of tiny little things that people might be struggling, or big things that people might be struggling that they don't know might have a sensory base to it.
Yep. Now, I saw recently that you've been trampolining and more. I remember when I was at secondary school. So if you're from outside the UK, secondary school would be roughly 11 to 15 or 11 to 18 if you're going to stay on for your A levels. But I remember very clearly in the first couple of years, we had these huge trampolines that came out. The boys were not allowed to trampoline. That was a girls only thing.
No.
And I remember thinking, but that looks really, really good fun. And they said, no, absolutely not. This is a girl sport only. And we were allowed to play badminton instead. And that was all we were allowed to do. Not brilliant. I mean, it's going back a while, but I remember thinking, but it looks so much fun to go trampolining, but it was girls only. No boys allowed. And I thought, why?
Yeah, why? Like that, just especially because that trampolining is one of my go-tos. Absolutely. If anybody does have a family, or does have somebody who just needs to move, and it's very organizing, it's very regulating, lots of proprioceptive input, lots of vestibular input, because there's so many things we can go into. But yeah, so I was at a trampoline park because I have normally taken my children to it, and I'm getting to that stage in life where what are the things that I would like to do that I haven't done because of overseeing, because of nurturing, because of putting them first, because of, all of that. And so, yeah, I said to one of my sons, I said, what, your mum fancies going trampolining and on the inflatables. That's the lovely thing. It was also inflatables that you can climb up and bounce off and throw yourself over. So I had an absolute ball, but it was lovely because he obliged. He came on with me, and you just think, oh, that really is a season shift where it's no longer mum goes to do something with the children. It's the children obliging mum to come and do it. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, then go on, I'll join you then if I must.
I think it's only fair that as parents, we get to do some of the things and let our children support us just every so often.
Every so often, absolutely. And that was so good. It's so satisfying. So from a sensory perspective, it honestly, it's a combination. My three biggest are a deep touch pressure, where we apply lots of pressure to the skin. So all of the crashing and the banging on all the inflatable stuff, you don't get hurt at all, do you? It's just, you can just fire yourself into them. But it's so wibbly wobbly that balance your vestibular system, which is your vestibular system, is totally stimulated all the time because you're on these unstable surfaces. But the bouncing itself and the joint compressions, that lovely linear vestibular up and down, you can do it as rhythmical as you want, and you're compressing those joints to give you proprioceptive input, which is strengthening your muscles, telling your brain, really reinforcing to your brain, this is where my body is in space. and it's a very organizing and regulating type of sensory input for most people.
And quite a lot of fun. I've not ever done it because I was not allowed to do it at school, so I've never tried to do it since.
Oh, Andy B, there you go. Mind you, I have to say, I'm not sure. Like, yes, health-wise, what it quite does to the heart. I had to take my watch off, so I couldn't see what my heart rate was doing. But I'm sure it was definitely working hard.
Yeah, well, I imagine because if you're just bouncing up and down on trampoline, yes, you're going to be bounced, and it's not a lot of effort. But if you want to go higher or sustain the up part of the bounce, you need to put some effort in.
Yeah, and there were also things where there were so many different aspects to it. There was one I had a great fun, with my boy because my son's quite coordinated. I played tennis for Jersey when I was growing up, so I was pretty coordinated growing up, and so we were throwing the ball at a target. Plus, you have to do that on the up of the bounce. So we were competing that way because he's massively coordinated and into sports and other things as well. And then there's the reaction time one where you have to bounce and then hit the lights as they come up. So you have to do it in speed and you have to do it in reaction time. Now, he won, but we were close. I mean, I was dead chuffed by how close I actually got, considering my age and considering his age and how remarkably coordinated he is. But we had a ball. It was great fun. So, yes, anybody go on holiday and find a trampoline park of some description, and it'll be hopefully a happy time, and all will be well.
You see, I'm not surprised by the competitiveness that you just revealed because Joe and I are very competitive. But for all those times when you're going to school, perhaps carrying the bags, or you're standing at the side of the football field or the hockey place or the netball tournament, and you're just standing there as parents, it's kind of payback. But don't forget, children, if you're competitive, where do you think it comes from?
I haven't taken him back on the tennis court though. I used to beat him, but he's really good at tennis now, and we haven't been on the tennis court for a couple of years. So, but I do want to take him back on. Yeah, I think he would probably want to take me back. He'd be gentle with me, but yeah, I think he'd probably beat me there as well now. But hey, that's okay.
Just talk us through that. So, just in case, what is a trampoline? Let's just start with the real basics and we can go from there. Just outline what a trampoline is.
Okay. So we have a metal frame. Oh, yes, because there's different types of trampoline, and they're important according to your sensory needs. Basically, you have a metal frame with a stretchy fabric in the middle of it, so that you stand on that. Now, it can be the size of a little paddling pool and very close to the ground, and it can have a handle on it. So that's really nice for those who are still developing their coordination and their balance. So you have a handle on it and you can just you bounce up and down. There are adult size ones as well as for little ones, but normally like the 2 to 3 year olds, you have these little portable or these little handles on little trampolines, but you can get them 6 foot. I don't know why we still talk about them in feet rather than meters, but it's like these 6 foot, 14 foot, 20 foot, massive, trampolines that you can get. Some of them are dug into the ground because the idea of that was for safety, so that when people bounce up, then they just land on if they were to bounce off it, then they're just going to be on the same level. They're not going to fall off the trampoline. And they just bounce onto the ground instead. But then we started putting nets around them, so that was helpful because if you were up high, because some of them are about 1.5 meters off the floor, so that you can get the bounce without hitting your feet off the ground when the fabric stretches. So that it was great to then get netting so that you'd be kept on the inside. It's like a cricket ball. If you've ever practiced cricket and you hit them into the net, then you've got that safety. But I think it's important to have them off the ground where possible, because our vestibular system also picks up how high we are off the ground, the sense of gravity. And for some individuals, we need to get those vestibular receptors connecting with gravity. And in the up and down movement, it helps them register vestibular input more. So if they are higher and jumping higher off the ground, we're going to get more registration that they can recognize that sensation. Whereas if they're just bouncing at floor level or bouncing into a pit that is dug out underneath the trampoline, then they're not going to register quite as readily.
I saw your reaction, and you need to watch the video to see Anne's reaction. But why was it so much fun? What's okay? It's a good laugh, but what's making the joy on your face as you remembered and recalled the memory of jumping on a trampoline? What is it that's generating the joy for us from a sensory perspective?
I think it's the vestibular system that connects into the reticular activating system in the bottom of the brainstem here that is involved with arousal. Arousal is the sense of how alert, how alive you feel about so many things, and it perks you up. So with that natural perking comes, if it's associated with something positive, then it's going to be going to elicit a lot of those memories and joy and a happiness that just exudes because you are generally more alert and happier rather than being alert and frightened. So we don't want that kind of alerting. But when you get an alerting that's associated with a joy and a pleasant experience, then it's really lovely for the system and really, yeah, plugged into emotions and memories, and yeah, all of those things then flow out of us automatically.
Which then provides the smile, the joy, the memory. I mean, you're there with your son, so you've got a good, a human contact communication. There's that part of having fun because you can see somebody else having fun or maybe getting it wrong, which is half the fun sometimes, I think. But it was wonderful seeing the joy in your face as you recall that memory. But if you're somebody who doesn't like to do very high, which I wouldn't because I got my stomach wrecked on an adventure park years ago, I wouldn't want to go high because I would not necessarily throw up, but I would not enjoy the experience because my stomach, whatever happened physically, I don't know. It was a horrible ride. I mean, everybody else was happy, not me. Just not my thing.
Yeah.
But something happens in the stomach, which can be fun. It's the same thing on a swing when you go muck on the swing, and then all of a sudden there's a moment when you're kind of free falling. You're not really being pulled down by the weight of anything. It's just you're sort of hanging in the air. That's the bit that makes me feel really, really unhappy. But for some people, I guess that would be the opposite. They would love that momentary sensation of I'm not rising or falling, I'm just in the air.
Yeah, they would. I think I'm a bit more with you on that one. I was very aware that my bounces were controlled, and also the inflatables that you have to kind of scramble up, and then there's either big slides or you literally launch yourself off and land in these foam pits. Um, and you know these other things that I was more cautious. I think because it's the first time I've done it in years, and I just quite wasn't sure what my body was going to do. But also that I know I don't need that level of intensity of input. So I was doing everything, but perhaps a little more moderated than others might. And then it's just finding the level, finding your level of enjoyment and satisfaction, and there's another good word for it, but it's just finding a happy place for you, which for others will be, you know, a lot more intense, and for others would be just less intense. But it's knowing who you are and how you are, and living in that band of your area of pleasure.
I remember seeing a photo of you. I'm guessing your son may have taken the photo, but you'd obviously just come off and you were sitting down or sort of leaning, I think. But it was just, yeah, there was definitely tiredness of I exerted some energy to do this because it's not just, you're not just being bounced up and down on the trampoline. You have to put the effort in. So there was clearly tiredness. But what I loved was just the joy on your face or whatever it is. And we hadn't seen that because obviously it's a photo just after. And however, the joy on your face was brilliant.
Because I'd also just done the Ninja Warrior set as well. It's like monkey bars and climbing over things, and if you don't jump, you know, when you're supposed to jump, then you get whacked around the head, and all it, you know, it's all nice and soft, and the guy control. There's one of these things that you also go around. That there's various other things you can climb on and swing on, and obstacle courses that are really good to challenge. Which in our world, actually, that's called an adaptive response. That's what I look for as a therapist, that where the body is challenged or where the individual is able to challenge themselves to do something that they haven't done before, or they need to move their body in a slightly different way. So there were quite a few things that you needed to walk along and hold on to that were totally unstable. They were hanging from the air, and you had to try and negotiate your way across without falling into the foam below. So that needed adaptive responses. So you are constantly what's called feed forward and feed back. Your body is constantly looking, taking in all the information from your sights, sounds, your body position, judging quite how far you need to stretch out your leg to land on something or your hand to grab something. And then you get the feedback that if you've missed it, your body goes, oh, missed it, from your sights and your hearing and your whole proprioceptive senses, that you know that you've missed it. And then you have this adaptive response and you go again to try and be a bit more tuned in, a bit better. And then your skills develop. And that's how in therapy we get people more coordinated and yeah, content in life with what they're doing. But the Ninja Warrior one was quite funny that it was something that went round on a machine, but there was a chap who was actually controlling the speed of it all. So after a few goes, I missed the jump. So if you don't jump high enough, you get clonked by a thing that goes down at the bottom. But there's also something that spins around at the top that has the potential to hit your head if you misjudge that one. That it is soft. But he was very gentle with me, and he was taking it nice and slowly. But my son went on it too, and he started to speed it up. I pulled away, and I just thought, yeah, no, I've done my bit. That was just brilliant, just to see the interplay between the chappie on the control trying to catch my son out on this Ninja Warrior thing. It's very funny, very good.
So if we came to you and we needed an occupational therapy help, are we going to find like a little miniature trampoline in the corner? Is that the sort of thing that you might have for someone?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I have what's called bounce pads. It'd be nice to have in the new centre, like a slightly bigger trampoline if I can. But there are little things that you can just literally bounce on to get the linear vestibular. But you're not going to be launching yourself up in the air. I would probably say for some of my people to go and get memberships at the trampoline park, because then they can go and do it themselves. They can do that. I would need to be working on how to carefully craft that need for their adaptive response. And that's the difference between having a therapist work with you rather than just going and having a good play. So a good play is really precious and very, very important and really good to do. But there are times when you do want a therapist to actually guide and really tune into, observe where we need to challenge the body that little bit more. Whereas people might push away a little bit, and it's our job to try and just bring. I speak a lot with my hands, don't I? I'm trying to do this, and it's like, yes, if you're listening, sorry, it's better to watch. But yeah, just to challenge the body a little bit, so that we get the connections in the brain that we're looking for. Yeah.
For which you probably don't need a massive centre. You need a smaller, more refined centre. You don't need to go 30 foot in the air on a bounce. Because, okay, that might be fun, but you're trying to get some other stuff happening, not just the fun part.
That's right. Yeah. So it's a more contained, fun experience. Yeah, because it has a different focus. And that's exactly it. And that's a nice one, because there are times I just think I would love to take over, especially in the middle of town. I would love to take over one of these big shops and actually have the likes of this in town, so that in the middle of the shopping, and so parents can go and do whatever they need to, or some of the adults, when they're doing their shopping, they can just leave their shopping, go and have a good run and a jump and a bounce and a crash, and then take the shopping and go home. That would be something that would be great to do. Have a sensory gym in the middle of town, rather than people going out doing their gym bit and then coming home. I think no, let's just incorporate it, and you can go for coffee before, have a good bounce, and then go for lunch afterwards. Preferably not the other way around.
Yeah. No, no. Right. Okay. So trampolining can be great fun, but you might use it in a slightly less raucous manner, shall we say. I wanted to talk about the magazine that we produced that you also write for, because it sparked in me something where I know we've talked about the joy of how we hold things and stuff, and I was very conscious of you mentioning somebody in a school who couldn't hold a piece of paper. So if they were holding, like I've got a book, they wouldn't be able to hold the paper because there was something of a struggle, I suppose, a disconnect in some regard of what was really going on. But we've had the magazine that you write for, Pure Media, the magazine, we've had it printed with our first 20 copies. And there's a photo, which I don't even know if we've put it online yet, but I held these, my little babies, it felt like, and I was, this is why I was asking you, I was taken back to the first whole time I held my first son, and he's in the crook of my arm, and it's a really precious moment. But as I held these magazines, I put the box on my arm, and it felt like, in a very slightly different way, obviously, this was like my little babies. And then there's a photo of me holding the magazines, and I realized my arm was in the same position as I would do virtually for holding a newborn baby. And I was sort of very preciously holding these magazines. But it got me thinking about, like, I saw in your face joy as you recalled the memory of being at the trampoline park with your son. But I was holding these magazines and there was just an immense joy because I loved the smell. I liked the tactile touch of actually holding the magazine here. Actually holding the magazine in my hand was really, really precious. The sound as you're going through the pages, all of that, it was just such a beautiful experience of finally holding this thing we've done online, digital, now it's paper. How do we help people engage when perhaps one of those things is a struggle? Because you've got, this isn't actually a very smelly ink, which is quite nice. I'm quite chuffed with how it's turned out. But of course, even the ink can be different from magazine to magazine. So what sort of tips could you give to somebody who likes holding a magazine but really struggles with the smell, or even potentially the sound, if I can actually pick it up, but the sound of, flicking through, you can hear that at all, even that for somebody might be an overload. So how might we help them engage with a magazine? Perhaps they want to, get a physical copy, but the smell or the sound or the sight, how can we help them to work through those? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's two different ways mainly of doing it. It's how can we give the sense that might be overreactive to that thing, overstimulated by whether it be the sound or by the smell. So you give them something else to smell at the same time. So you might put a burner on, an incense, light a candle that has a smell, so that it will overpower the sense of the smell. The same with the sound. So you would have things in the background. You would have something else that the ear will tune into. Or you put your some headphones on to actually listen to music, so that it will override, your ear will tune into that rather than the sound of the paper. Or you do the blocking out. So you either make something more intense for the brain to listen to, or you try and actually remove the ability for that sense to be hit in the first place. So you can get little nose clips. We often use those for smells. Swimmers would use them quite a bit. You've seen little things where people put clothes pegs
Yeah.
on their nose. Not the folks would do that in particular, but it's that kind of idea. So you actually stop the smell getting to the nose in the first place. Putting on a mask, doing anything that is comfortable for you. To stop the smell going there in the first place. And then for the ears, putting ear defenders on, putting ear plugs in, just either, stop it or replace it with something that your sense is going to pay more attention to than the actual sense of the smell or the auditory system.
I was conscious of the smell of a book. I mean, I didn't know what it was going to smell like. I've had some magazines, and you can go through a news agency, you can go through the magazines, and some of them they stink. It's quite overpowering. If you're not bothered, even I'm thinking this is quite a lot. I don't know whether it's the cost of the ink or it's just but sometimes we just need to help people get over a piece rather than saying, well, here's a magazine, don't buy it or don't read it because you can't smell it. But actually, there is maybe one thing that you can change that will help it. And I thought, well, could you change something around you? Maybe that might help. Maybe you've just had a bad experience.
Yeah. And you can concentrate on other things as well, because it could be that if you, what we often use, say, for example, the trampolining, tricky with a magazine because it's difficult to read, but often use another sense. So if we concentrate on the smell and hearing, which is what we've just done there, then I would look at another sense. How can we feed in more input into the proprioceptive vestibular sense or even the tactile sense so that the brain is concentrating on those sensations rather than the smell and the auditory system as well. So we can use the senses in a lovely way to either to compensate or to help or to minimize or to increase sensitivity in whatever sensory pathway that you need. But I love the sense of smell. I would go for a book. I will sniff that magazine. You know, when I come to see one, and I love I do love all of that. I'm definitely I love smelling things. Sensory seeker in the olfactory system.
Not old, as I first thought. It's OLE, olfactory, not old factory, as I first thought when I misheard one time.
And I don't even know if it has an E on it.
Oh,
I
does it not?
think it's OL.
Oh, okay. Hey, that's why I'm not the therapist. I've completely lost my train of thought then. What was I on earth was I going to say to you? No, it's completely gone thinking about the how I forgot to spell the thing. How would you explain to someone who thinks, well, it's a magazine. How can you possibly struggle to read a magazine? You just pick it up, you open it, you read it. How do we help people understand that there are people for whom that actually it's not as straightforward as just pick it up and read it because there's a sound, there's a smell, there's a noise or something. How do we help them understand that?
I think it's quite if people wear glasses, that might be a good way of being able to say it because it's just like, okay, if you're used to wearing glasses, or if they're not used to wearing glasses, give them a pair of glasses. If they're used to wearing glasses to read, take those glasses off, and then it's just like, here, there's a magazine, you know, connect with it. What are you getting from it? And it's the sense, and it's like, but I can't engage with it. I can't see it. You know, you might start to get it's the feelings that we need to get people to recognize what it's like. They may not be able to appreciate the sensation themselves, but if there is, for example, if they were to get frustrated or they would put it down because they can't read what is written, um, then we're tapping into the same emotions. And it's just like, oh yeah, okay, I get that. I get that that's not pleasant for me. So although I don't understand why the touch might bother some people, I can understand that it would elicit feelings like having my glasses removed does for me,
Hmm.
or putting on glasses or trying to read through binoculars or whatever. We do have various examples and for people to get a feel of what it's like not to perceive well. It's like with the touch system, one of my things that I do if I'm going around doing training for people is seeing if they can put outsized gloves on, or if like, so for you, it'd be one of your sons, mind you, it would be Joe. Having your pair of gloves on, you know, if you've got like fairly big gloves, then you would want to try and undo a sweet wrapper. And it's like, or try and do your buttons with oversized gloves on. And it's like, what does that feel like? And that's similar to people who don't have that tactile registration, who don't have the discrimination to be able to manage buttons neatly and tidily, or undo a sweet wrapper. Excuse me. Because the gloves are just getting in the way, and that's what it feels like for some people. Their hands, their touch system isn't processing well, and it's just getting a sense of what it's like when the senses are not processing the same as what you might hope.
Or, I think I've mentioned this one time before, putting in the second contact lens for the very, very first time, which was
There you go.
honestly,
That was yeah, that's yeah, one I've not had to experience. So yeah, whatever connect with anybody to help them realize just how hard it is. So it's the second one that's hard then.
yeah, because the first one you can kind of overcome all the things I'm sticking something in my eye and you get through it.
Mm.
And when I try, I don't wear contacts because my eyes are just in between two things, so I can never. I tried them as a trial, but the optician said it's the second one that's probably going to be the hard one. They didn't say it will be, just it can be. The amount of anger and frustration in me that I could not stick my finger in my other eye,
Right.
second contact lens for the first time. Honestly, this is okay. Let's just take a little breather. This is normal. This is nothing weird that you're going through, but it's weird for you. Let's just have a little breather, just have a little walk around the shop, come back again. And I was able to put the second contact lens in. But because the first time you do it, your body accepts it. The second time it thinks, well, there was an unpleasant part of that experience that I don't want to recall. Thank you very much. So it doesn't want to do it. So it's not so your senses and your whole body's just like, not talking to you. It's like one of your bits of your body's just having a strop with the other.
Yeah, yeah. And I think actually what you did, your regulation, the self-regulation that you went away, you walked, you probably did some deep breathing, you might have changed, you know, taken a temperature, you know, taken like a coat off or gone outside, or it's using all of those sensory strategies to bring arousal levels down, to bring the alertness, to bring the stress down in the system, so that you're then able to go through that. But yeah, it is a conflict, and we are designed for protection. We're designed to protect ourselves.
Yes, which is why the second contact lens, my body was like, no, no, because this isn't fun. No, go away. And I felt the wrestle with my own body, and I was almost arguing with my own self that I can do this. I've just literally done this. I can do this. But that is, I'm guessing, a piece of the puzzle that you're then faced with when somebody comes in and says they can't hold a piece of paper. Everyone says they should. I know I can put a contact lens in. I've done it once. Why can't I do it a second time? Well, they can pick up a book. I can't. And then you've got that internal aggression creating frustration of, but I know I should, but I can't.
Mm. Absolutely. And it's not easy. It takes a skill to be able to help people through that, because people do need to get through that in order to develop and do things that society needs us to do.
And I enjoyed it once I got the contact lens in.
Mm.
But my goodness, that second contact lens for the first time is probably the best example I can come with all our conversations. It's
Right.
the most like I can understand or perceive the people that you're meeting. That's what they go through. Is try and put a second contact lens in for the first time. It is, or can be, really aggression creating frustration. It's just, but because the thing is, I knew I could do it and I've just done it. So why can't I do it? And that why I've just done it, why not now? That
Mm.
was what then creates that sort of circle of frustration that builds inside you.
Oh, totally. And it's huge. And that's also within the workplace, or within, um, within home or within school. There's a slightly different element to this, what I'm about to say next, but they can do it one day, but not the other day. The inconsistencies in someone's behavior, in what they can do. And it's just like, it depends on how there's just so many other things that affect our bodies and what we're then able to do on a day-to-day basis. And for you, it was just like a few minutes between one and the other. You could do it fine once, and then you weren't able to do it on this one for all of those reasons that you've explained. And it's the similar thing that when some people can do something at home, at school, at workplace one day, and then that the system is in a different place, or it has memories of things, it's processed things, it's now coming into that this is much harder for me. I can't do it today. It's just not happening.
Mm.
um mm,
But with a contact lens, I know that if I can get it in that second time for the first time, I will then learn to do it, and it will start to decrease the frustration, the arousal levels that you keep referring to. That's going to diminish because, well, I have actually done that bit of this two contact lenses thing. But of course, if you've got a struggle with sensory health, then you're not going to get past the first one because you're stuck at not being able to get past that first process.
yeah, and then we'd go at it a completely different way, and we'd go back to the senses, we'd go back to getting the body, we'd go back to reducing arousal levels, we'd go back to getting the coordination, we'd go back to filling the sensory, the sensory tank well, and make sure that we've got, yeah, all the other sensory pieces possible in there, so that the next time they come to it, there's a lot more um ability to be successful, because that's what we want to do. We just want people to be successful in the big and the small. It's just little successes are so important.
I would finish with this then. It seems like a lot of your job as an occupational therapist who specializes in sensory health is about calming people down in order for them to discover what they can do in life.
That is a big part of it for those who are overreactive.
Hmm.
For sure, that is the number one thing, and that's the number one thing probably in schools, because the other children that are not as that have different sensory processing issues, you need to work with them in a different way. But it's the ones that are more over aroused, that are more alerted by sensory input. Again, school or workplace or the home, they're the ones that the behaviors get in the way that bit more. So that's why it looks like, and certainly with the things that we talk about, it's they're definitely the first place to start. Let's get the system regulated. Let's get the system in a better place, because you can't learn. You can't learn if you're not in a good place. You can't communicate well in a team meeting. You can't communicate well in a marriage. You can't communicate well with friends if you're alert, if you're over alert and not in a good place. It hits yeah, it just hits so many things that are not that don't feed well into functioning well in life.
If you want to engage with Anne's help as an occupational therapist, and she can advise you about trampolines and all sorts of other things, you can do so. Go to our website, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ, and you can connect with Anne Lord Jackson of Sante on Jersey. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye for now. Pure Media, the magazine, is hand perfected with some of the finest writers from around the world that we could find. And yes, Andy B too. New editions are released just for you on the first Friday of every month, from our family to your family. Pure Media, the magazine, is available now. Sign up for free at puremediafamily.com/magazine.